first of all, if you've not met, it doesn't have to be the full 6 months, but you should be working towards getting there. Maybe you have only 1 month. So slowly, and this is not something that you can do overnight. Have a plan of getting it to slowly to get to 2 months, to get to 3 months, until you get to 6 months.
Right.
Now, if you still don't have 6 months, you have no business buying an IUL.
Gotcha.
I'm sorry.
No, that's right.
I'm sorry if you cannot if you do not have.
But you're insuring your life.
If you do not, first of all,
you're insuring your life for your loved ones.
You're insuring your life
for your loved ones.
You're insuring your life in case of death. But now here during the living, you can't feed them while they're living. Notice one thing.
I'm not going to say anything.
Notice one thing. There are no financial experts who sell that product. And I'm saying this in a very kind way because I know there are people who sell it who might be listening to me. They target especially people in the healthcare industry. So imagine if I'm in the finance industry and then I'm here selling you a cure for cancer. Would you come and buy it from me and I'm not a medical expert? Yeah, so I get it, but I talk about consumer debt, credit cards. That is the worst kind of debt. Amen. You know, like because the credit cards, they have very high interest rates, and I think right now Americans, they owe more than $1 trillion in credit card debt. It has hit $1 trillion. So that says something. Number of comments here coming in. So this was a topic that a lot of people were interested in. I can see Patrick says roll over to Fidelity. It's the best. I'm a Vanguard type of person, but Fidelity, Vanguard, potato.
What is the difference? Because
where they're located.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Vanguard is in Philadelphia.
So for the most part,
they do the same thing.
Yeah. So for the most, they do the same thing.
They do the same
T. Rowe Price, there is some subtle differences here and there, but for most people, they're not gonna see any of those differences. And then hapa Linda Stewart anamwambia Jimmy Onkangi sasa ile XAXA. Karibu sana. And then
XA, that's what.
And then
no, those are Samos.
Samos. Kesesi anasema, but the interest goes back to your 401k. I think this is what you were talking about before.
Correct. Yes. You're paying yourself back.
And then actually, Mosekemunto is correct that in saying the penalty is 10%, and I think Mosekemunto is correct. Gladys.
Yes.
It's 10%.
Mosekemunto Gladys.
Yes. She's saying it's 10%. And then Rachel Machare anasema, look at us getting financially smart. And then I think hapa there were a few comments here coming in on YouTube. Warimo says, if you borrow from your 401k, 401 or 43, I think she meant 43B, and then leave that employer before you've repaid the full amount, that balance is subjected to a 10% EWP, and also the tax rate for that year. This is something
that's actually, she makes a good point, if I may just
early withdrawal penalty.
So what happens, and that's a good one that she brought up, right? So you borrow against remember your retirement money is not taxed.
Correct.
Right? It's not taxed money.
It's tax deferred.
Okay, tax deferred. Look at bougie ass. It's not a curse. But it's tax deferred, right? And what happens is that once you break that contract, you hit the entire taxation.
Yes.
And the maximum, because it looks like an early withdrawal, which is what, 25%? Think about if you break your retirement contract, they hit you at the maximum.
Yeah, so when you file your taxes, you're gonna see a very shocking number.
So it's like the regular 10% plus whatever
you owe in taxes.
Yes.
And so it could go close. It could go even up to 30%.
It could go
depending on what bracket you are.
And not even that. If you get laid off and you have a 401k loan.
Yeah, so that's
you get hit the same penalty.
Yeah, that's
so whether you leave, you get laid off or something. That was a good one.
Yeah, good one.
That's
why I told you
because you've broken.
Yeah.
Basically, you
broke
broke
the contract.
Yeah.
Right? And they smack you.
Yes. I want to remind the listeners that you are tuned in to the One Mic Show, and I'm your host and producer, Ali Badawi. We are talking to the VP of Commercial Lending at the Harborside Bank of Maryland, Maura Moroki. We've just unpacked quite a number of things. Trump's new economy. We're talking about 401k here. And coming up shortly is a discussion on... is a discussion, or we're going to talk further about the 401k accounts melting away and what you must not do. Already, like people have already been reading ahead of the teacher and answering some of those questions. But what is a conversation on finances for Kenyans without talking about real estate, aka Boroti, Maguta. We'll soon be diving onto the topic of whether to buy or not to buy a home in these turbulent times. And should we even consider selling our idle Borotis back home to increase our cash flow for our families here in the diaspora? I want you to keep it locked for that and more. And our lines are open. The number to call is 202-683-4570. Press *5 to speak. Number again, 202-683-4570. Press *5 to speak. So just continuing on that conversation about 401ks. In these turbulent times where, ulikuwa umeingia 401k, for those who have big 401ks, maybe your 401k is at $1 million. And then you go back 2-3 weeks later, it's down to 800,000. Now, when you see such things, what is it that you should do and what is it that you should avoid doing?
Stay.
What do you mean by stay?
Stay where you're at. So
do nothing.
Do not move things around.
Do nothing.
Do nothing. And it's very difficult for us as individual investors not to stay, because let's put things together. The market dropped 2 weeks ago, 1,600 or 2,600 points.
Yes.
If you looked at
a lot of people don't understand what 2,600 points is.
So the stock market, the Dow Jones, which is the top 500 companies in America.
The S&P 500.
Yeah. They're the ones, so their valuations, how people feel comfortable about them, they dropped by 2.6%.
Yes.
2.6%.
Yeah, and that's a big number.
That's a huge number if you look at the entire global. And then the next day they came back up by 1.6%.
Yes.
So there are people who made money and there are people who lost a lot of money.
Yeah.
What does that mean to you as a regular person? What does it mean to you? So when you work for a company, especially like this, big companies and your 401ks, they invest into those. So your investment, you have somebody who's an investment manager. Your company has something that they have that they invest for you. And when you take that loss, don't look at it.
Yeah. Just take it. Just take it like a man.
It's gonna come in.
Or take it like a woman.
I didn't say that.
Thank you for clarifying.
Yeah. Take it like a man or a woman.
I didn't say you
That's
did.
what I meant.
Because women nowadays can take it.
And then, but also, let's put this, and because you guys have a broad audience, right?
Yes.
If you're 22, leave it alone. If you're 66, oh my God, it means something different to you.
But I'm assuming even if you're 66, because there's that part of the reason why.
And what if you're like 72, like Omosh?
Part of the problem.
I didn't want to say it, but that's what I was
part
thinking.
of the problem is the people who sell these exotic products. I'll call them like IULs.
So IULs are exotic.
Yeah, those like okay.
Just
By
doesn't wanna
exotic,
give it a bad name.
by exotic, I mean that 90%, let me say 95% of the people have no need for that.
No.
So
I think what happens is that when the market goes down, like for example in 2025, the people who sell those products, they come out. You see, we told you. You see, we told you. So, and here's the thing: even if you're close to retirement, let's say you're 57 years old and you're approaching retirement, and you're seeing this money melt away, like at 10%. My thinking is, if you're gonna be retiring at 60, for example, it doesn't mean you will be pulling the full amount of your retirement, and you shouldn't even do that. Because when you get to that age, it doesn't mean that you won't be taxed when you pull out the money. All that it means is that you will not get the penalty. Because there's a penalty, the early withdrawal penalty. You will avoid that once you turn 59. But then when you pull it out, you'll still be taxed. So the people who make a mistake of, I have $1 million in my retirement account, I'm taking it all. So you're like, okay, so your brokerage, and by the way, most brokerages nowadays are very good. Fidelity, Vanguard, they will have a very big pop-up there, and they will tell you, this is a taxable event. What they won't tell you is how much you're paying in taxes, because in all fairness, they don't know your tax situation. So you'll get to know your answer the day when you go file your taxes. So when you go filing your taxes, you're happy, you took $1 million, sherehe hapa na pale, Vegas, LA, nini nini. Then when you go file your taxes, they tell you owe $300 and something thousand dollars. Yeah, on $1 million, you'll owe $300 and something thousand dollars. They will take it away very easily.
Yeah. Before more answers, what is IUL? Because some of us don't even know what IUL is and what does
exotic.
So
what do you say exotic? What are you?
So IULs are these products that, first of all, they're very difficult. They're called indexed universal life insurance. Yeah. So they try to mix up elements of life insurance where you have some investments, you're getting some returns out of it. Because typically life insurance, you're paying a premium and you're waiting for an event to happen. If the event doesn't happen, then all those premiums that you paid, it's just like car insurance. If you pay insurance and you never get an accident, you get nothing out of it. So with this indexed universal life insurance, they try to mix both, where they're telling you that you will get a certain percentage, like every year. But then on the back end, there's very high fees. So whatever they're telling you, you will get, they index it to something. And then when the market goes up to like 25, which has happened in recent years, 25, 30%, your growth is capped. So you cannot, once you get to a certain percentage, there's a certain max. It could be 8%. It could be 9%. So if the market is giving back 30%, you're capped there. And then now the argument that they bring in is that, when the market is negative, we are still giving you something. What they don't tell you is that if you look at, for example, the past 25 years, or maybe the past 20 years, maybe there's been one or two, or maybe, let me say, 3 or 4 years when we've had, like a major market crash. So most likely, your money is going to be growing. And I know people who sell these products, they kind of don't like me. And this is what I tell people. Notice one thing.
I'm not going to say anything.
Notice one thing. There are no financial experts who sell that product. And I'm saying this in a very kind way because I know there are people who sell it who might be listening to me. They target especially people in the healthcare industry. So imagine if I'm in the finance industry and then I'm here selling you a cure for cancer. Would you come and buy it from me? And I'm not a medical expert. I'm selling you. So what's happening is essentially what was happening with this drug. What was it called? Oxycodone. The people who are selling it were people who are not in the medical industry. The oxycodone sales people, the people that were hiring to sell it, were not in the medical industry. So IULs, this is the oxycodone of the financial world, but that's not the topic of today.
Got it. I just wanted.
But I'd like to opine. Just
sure.
I'll be very fast.
Yes,
I think you're saying. You hear that opine?
Yeah, I know. Yeah,
jeez.
Yeah.
Don't play it.
Omosh will use it next week and pretend he knew it.
Next week in the next
That's
hour.
what it does. Yeah.
In the next
No,
hour.
and you hit a lot of points. So, but the thing when you have that, so life insurance. Why do you need life insurance? So we don't changa, right? You need life insurance so we don't changa. That's your zero. Right, everything starts at zero. Where do we start? Is a zero, so we don't changa, right? And everybody needs to have a life insurance. So you can have a term life insurance, which means like for 25, I'll use myself as an example. When I was 12 years old, my dad got me a term life insurance, and it was a 30-year type, 30-year term life. So I was like, man, I was still not a curse, Negro. You think I'm not gonna be here in the next 25 years. Term life.
Yeah.
And it expires.
So it expires, yeah.
Right?
So if nothing happens,
yeah. Whatever he's been paying for those months,
yeah, that's gone.
It's gone.
Yeah.
But if things go sideways,
yeah,
there's going to be something that's going to happen.
Mm-hmm.
And then we go to like universal life insurance, right?
Yeah.
So universal life insurance has two impacts into it. You have a term, but also the biggest one that makes it sexy is because you have investment products that come in behind it, right? So like if you like, I have one of those universal. So you come in, I put in my stock portfolio. Like I've been aggressive on mine, extremely aggressive, right? Because I'm like, listen, man, I need to hit 100. My grandfather made 100. My grandmother made 100. So why am I going to be conservative?
Yeah.
Right. But you put in, it gives you the investment aspect into it. So it's not to say that you didn't say, I agree with you, but I feel that everybody has to understand the entire story, because there's some people who are risk averse or risk heavy on it, you know?
But here's what I'll tell you, Maura.
Yeah.
90%, and when I say 90%, I'm being very conservative. 90% of the people, they don't know what we're talking about.
Oh, agreed.
So a lot of people who, who are buying this product, they actually have no idea what they're getting into. So when they come back and say, oh, I want my money, they're told, no, you can't access your money.
Right.
You can't access your money, so so a lot of people who are being pushed into these products, they're pushed into these products, they sometimes don't even have an emergency fund.
Correct.
They don't have certain basics that you need to have before you get into playing around with this exotic products. They don't have a grounding in those, and that's what I've learned works for most people. Is get them something very basic. Like for example, if you don't understand investments, get the S&P 500, go and sleep. Like it is not, like you're gonna be better off, because the moment you start, like teaching people, for example, to trade stocks and they don't quite understand them, guess what's happening to them in 2025?
Losing.
Guess what's happening to them in 2025?
And do you know you just pulled a double negative? You pulled a double negative. You said people don't understand stocks, and then you said S&P 500. Most people don't understand what S&P 500 means.
But the S&P 500
no, what standard
is
you have
easier,
to tell them standard,
is easier to explain.
What I'm saying, Standard and Poor's.
Yes.
A lot of people don't understand what S&P means.
I agree with you.
Right. Sorry. I didn't mean. I was just saying.
I agree with you. And thank you for correcting me.
Yeah.
But that's something easier to teach.
Correct.
And it's one thing.
Agreed.
This is the only one thing that you need to know. Because most people are not gonna spend hours and hours, like learning about these these products. So that's why, like it's very careful. And then another interesting thing about insurance that I think also people need to understand, and even life insurance, especially the term insurance. Do you know how many people, an estimate of the percentage of people who get an event and benefit out of it? Anyone who can make a guess?
5%.
5%. Uno Mike, make a guess. A wild guess.
22%.
22%. Omosh, wild guess.
18.
I don't know whether Mika is still there. Ama lipata shughuli. And
why did you
anyone.
look at me? Why did you look at me?
Yeah,
no, he's there, but
you looked at
anyone,
me like we were on the phone.
And anyone on the comments, if you wanna make a guess, because the number I will give you will shock you, and it will shock most people. The people who benefit, especially those ones that expire, because they're those ones that are whole, which means that you will most likely benefit. The number of people that benefit are, believe it or not, 1%.
Really?
Yes. And if you think I'm not telling the truth,
No, I believe you.
go to ChatGPT, go to Google. It's only 1 out of 100 people. So I think when you're getting into a life insurance product, also have a full understanding that you're getting into it with a 1 in 100 chance that that these premiums are gonna benefit someone. I personally do not advise, I cannot advise someone whether to get or not to get life insurance. But I will tell you, one of the best insurances you can have is your family, the people you have around you, and your community.
Yeah.
You know, one important thing that you need to figure out outside the money is who's going to take care of my kids if something happens to me, you know, like, and my wife, or if you're a single parent. That's the most important thing. You know, it's one thing, you know, if you have $1 million there for them, what's a 5-year-old going to do with $1 million? Nothing. So I think it's very important to know, you know, and even talk to people, have these conversations, and even have written agreements. If something, especially for single parents, because single parents are at a higher risk, because you're a single point of failure. In case you die, then your kids have no one to take care of them. Right. So have these conversations of, if something were to happen to me, and even death is going a bit far with all these shenanigans happening, people with green cards are getting pulled and they're getting deported. Yeah. So if something were to happen to you, what's happening to your minor child? So those are the most important things that people actually need to think about. Will my child have a nice, warm place to stay with a good family? And these are things that people don't think about, because I think we're so tuned to think of the money aspect.
So in other words, unasema kuna opportunity ya godparents kucharge wale watu wengine kitu kidogo prior to them taking on parental duties.
But I'm not understanding your question, because
so godparents are supposed to step in, basically. If something
is that what godparents are supposed to do?
That's what they're supposed to do. They're supposed to step in case something were to happen to the parents, as well as to be there for huyu mtoto, almost kind of like a shadow parent, for lack of a better word. You know, some even take it to the religious level where wewe ndio unaenda kwa baptism, you know, those sorts of things. But the godparents basically are the ones who, in case of this is, I'm saying that huyu ndio mtu is going to look out.
Okay.
All right. And you know, and just adding on to it, and I don't like to pump things up, but you know, our friend Cliff Koth is great
in personal finance,
in that personal finance, and making sure, and it's, I always say this, right, especially with personal finance, right, find somebody, a trusted advisor that you can believe that is going to take care of your family if you're not there, right? If you can't be there to make the decision, right, you need a trusted advisor that's going to be there to take care of whatever life has to go, you know.
Because everyone has having a, you know, like a trusted financial advisor is like having, you know, like a personal doctor.
Correct.
Yeah, it's like having a personal doctor. They're advising you on your health, because finances is one of those things that can have, you know, like very serious ramifications if you don't do it the right way. If you have no will, if you have no, it can have very serious ramifications. And I see, you know, like quite a number. Another very interesting topic, because I see so many comments were coming in here as we were as we were talking. Thiambo Dak says she's always a Vanguard girl. And then Eunice Smith says, first time listening and I'm learning a lot. Eunice, thank you so much for tuning in. Please tell us where you're tuned in from, what city, what state, what country. And then here Stephen Battis is saying, if your stock portfolio goes down and they're still investing, will it mean that you will get more shares quantity-wise of the stocks that you have invested? No, you know, like when your portfolio goes down, it's still the same number of shares. It means the value of each share is going down, basically. And then Gerald Oliechapa is saying lifetime based on the made market, lifetime based on lifetime based on the index market. To cancel the fees, you take the cash value of the term. And then Apa Estamulusa says Obama promised the same reward for accident-free driving, but it never happened. And then Apa Gladys says, I didn't know that's how you look at agents who sell insurance early. Not insurance. No, I'm not talking about insurance. I am specifically talking about one particular product. And you see, let me be clear on this IUL thing. Is there a segment of the market that can benefit from it? Of course there is. Of course there is a segment of the market. But then the way IULs are being sold, people are being told to stop contributing to their 401ks. that's part of because I've been in some of these, because I sometimes go inside of them to hear what people are being told. They're being told, stop like investing in your 401k and put your money here, which I think is a very fatal mistake that I think a lot of people have made, which is why it's that one particular product that's being sold to people who don't understand it. And the people who are selling it, most of them are nice people. They're nice people, but then they're not financial experts. Right. Ask yourself, anyone who's selling this product, ask yourself this question. Why is it that they are specifically targeting people who are not in finance to sell, this product? It's because there's certain things that you're not going to question if you're not in finance. So I think the people who are selling, they've also been sold to the product, and it's very difficult to tell people who are already inside of it. So I'm not talking against insurance. I'm talking particularly against this IUL, which is being sold to people. It's being sold by people who are not in the finance world. Not saying they're not smart people, but remember, being in the finance world, it means you have so many years of experience of so many different things. Like your 25 years of experience, like you can't get that in a 90-minute or in a 1 week training. You cannot get that. It's the same way if you're in the medical field. If you have 10, 15 years of experience in the medical field, I can't go and take a 1 week training and say now I'm qualified to recommend like certain drugs, or look at someone and say that this is the surgery they need, or that's the surgery they need. So I think like I'm trying, and I'm being very careful, because I know there's so many people in the community who are selling this particular, and I'm not talking of life insurance. I think people need to separate the two, unless you know exactly what you're doing. Like Maura, for example, he knows what he's maneuvering around. 90% of the people do not know what they're doing. When you stop contributing to your 401k to get into this product, which is what people are actually being told to do, I think that
becomes a problem.
That is very, very problematic. So I'm not saying, I'm talking about IULs, not life insurance. Life insurance is something entirely separate.
With the IUL, you've hit the point. So there's nothing. You've hit the point, and also the thing I think that you hit. Know and manage your level. Where are you? Right? In these IULs, everybody has levels. Don't lie to yourself. Everybody has levels, right? Yeah. If I got $1 million policy or got $100,000 policy, we live in different levels, right? And the IULs, and something that you triggered in me, I say this only as just a bypass. We used to do whole life insurance financing. You need to be loaded to get whole life insurance financing.
Yes. That's for very rich people.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's for very rich people.
And it's one of those things, but it's the same product. But
it's very expensive.
It's front loaded expensive, back end cheap.
That's right, but you also
you have to
be able to afford those monthly, those very high
in
monthly
the beginning,
premiums.
The first 10 years. And why I brought it up is so like what you're saying. It's everybody has to understand where your levels are, right? Don't come over there and tell me with a Chevy Corolla, a Toyota Corolla, and then you want to be in a Cadillac CTV. We live in different worlds.
And you see, unfortunately, the reality, there's a lot of preying on people. On most people, and I would call it a conservative 90%. Yeah. Most people don't have this knowledge, they don't have this information, and that's why I think it would be important for whatever community organizations you have, invest in getting people to teach you about finances, because it becomes very, very difficult in convincing people, especially when there's a lot of groupthink, where everybody in a certain group, they're being told, buy this product. It goes back to the time in Kenya where everyone was being told to buy quails. They're very profitable. They're gonna and people go in mass. So yeah. So and then up I can see Eunice is asking, what do you suggest? Like I always say, I would never because I don't know your individual needs. I can never advise on what kind of life insurance you need to get. That's something that you need to do an analysis with an expert in that field. Not only an expert in that field, someone who understands life insurance and someone who also cares about you. So you have to balance the two. Because also, life insurance is also a business. They're also in the business of getting people to pay premiums.
And by the way,
you also have to balance the two.
And Bandi over here says, you know what, aliye nasema watu wanaacha for 1K for IULs ni kama watu walivyoacha cancer treatment kwenda Loliondo kupata kikombe cha babu.
There you go. That great analogy from Bandi.
Now I think someone has to translate that for
how do you say that in Oswahili and in English?
Yeah, but anyway, so Eunice, not to lose Eunice's point, because she was asking what I suggest is I can't advise you on the life insurance part, but I think the basics, make sure you have an emergency fund. You know, like before you start getting all these extra products, make sure, especially if you have a family, make sure you have an emergency fund. And an emergency fund is, at least, if you have a family, at least at the bare minimum, 6 months of your living expenses.
So Ali, just agreed with you.
Yes.
that part, but 6 months is not realistic to most people. Right?
Yes.
Right, like it's not realistic. That's I say the same. I have the same pitch.
Mm-hmm.
Make sure you have 6 months, right?
Mm-hmm.
But it's not realistic to everybody.
Yes.
Right?
Actually, to most people, you're right.
Correct.
Yeah.
Right. So the bigger question. So this is a question from me to you.
Yeah.
What would you recommend? So you have a guy, somebody who's, so minimum wage is what, $19 an hour,
Yeah.
right? So you're making $25 an hour, $40,000 a year.
Yeah.
Right. And they have to save, and they've got 3 kids, and they have an apartment.
So, now here's the interesting part. When, first of all, if you've not met, it doesn't have to be the full 6 months,
Right.
but you should be working towards getting there. Maybe you have only 1 month. So slowly, and this is not something that you can do overnight. Have a plan of getting it to slowly to get to 2 months, to get to 3 months, until you get to 6 months.
Right.
Now, if you still don't have 6 months, you have no business buying an IUL.
Gotcha.
I'm sorry.
No, that's right.
I'm sorry if you cannot if you do not have.
But you're insuring your life.
If you do not, first of all,
you're insuring your life for your loved ones.
You're insuring your life
for your loved ones.
You're insuring your life in case of death. But now here, during the living, you can't feed them while they're living. You can't feed them while they're living, because if you lose a job, and you have a family, guess what? Your IUL is not going to help you.
Exactly, and I'm so glad you said what you.
You mean you can't go there and you remove and then you say?
So what I'm saying, once you've met,
I have an event of a.
So Mosh, once you've met all these minimum buckets, there's certain minimum buckets. The match that your company gives you on your 401k, that's very important for you to take, because if you leave it, you're leaving free money. Because, for example, if your company is matching 6%, you earn 100k a year. So that means if you contribute 6,000, the company is giving you another 6,000. That's 100% return. That's on top of the return that you're gonna get. There is no investment. Someone show me an investment that will give you a guaranteed 100% return every year.
And you're vested on whatever you give.
Yes. So you see, so at the bare minimum, that should be the bare minimum. Now, after you've taken care of that bare minimum, then you should focus on building an emergency fund. And the emergency fund, it could either be in a savings account, or it's also okay to have an emergency fund in a brokerage, because brokerages nowadays, there's ways of quickly pulling out the money if you need it. And to me, I always recommend that direction, because at least the money is not just sitting there. Because if your monthly expenses are $5,000, 6 months is $30,000. That's a high amount of money to just have sitting in a checking account. So that $30,000 over 5 years, if you are vested in the S&P 500, it doubled within 5 years. And so you have 60,000 now.
Correct.
So if you cannot make that minimum, a cue for you to know that people who are selling you life insurance, IULs, a cue that you don't qualify for it is if you do not have enough money to cater for 6 months worth of expenses if something were to happen to you. then those products are not for you.
And and just to add on to what you're saying, because I agree with you, the only thing I would say, how you put your money away, think of it as a bill.
Yes.
Right? The way we pay our credit cards, our car notes, our mortgages, and rent, just put it away as a bill.
Yeah.
So my recommendation to all my clients is like, listen, man, if you're trying to save something, and he's going to make fun of me because I'm trying it, make sure you put it as a bill. Because if you look at it as a savings, because you look at it, I can get it back.
Yeah.
Got it.
Right? I can always, I can get it back. But if you look at it as a bill, nobody's going to pay you back.
Yeah, you're paying out.
You're just paying out.
Yeah.
And then you put it.
It's a discipline.
You're paying out what you owe.
And then you put it, and then you forget your password. Right? Don't make it like when things
are thick, you can just go and pull it out.
You leave that and you forget that password. And you put it somewhere you just know you have an account and let it go. Because as humans, let's think about this. When things go sideways, what do? We look for stuff, right?
We go in the sock drawer.
We go in the sock drawer and we change.
LA7 is coming up. Everyone is going.
I don't have the money, and I know. I need.
You're like, hey, what
I have to go to Vegas. I need $3,000.
Yeah, and then people are staying in 4-star hotels, 5-star hotels, and you're like, hey, let me pull this money. Kidogo, $2,000 down. Let me read a couple of comments here that were coming.
Those comments are coming.
Yes. Skylar Roberts says term life is sunk cost, and it's cheaper if you get it at an early age. And then Eunice is telling us she's from NYC. Asante sana Eunice for tuning in. Skylar says a life insurance will help with not being a burden to those relatives who also have other responsibilities. But people still create WhatsApp groups, people with life insurance. But that's a topic for another day.
But it's the Harambee
No. I mean, that's something that also needs to happen. That's another story. It's a story for another day, because this was supposed to prevent WhatsApp groups, but people still want that money, even on top of the insurance money. Anyway, let's hear what Patrick here has to say. Patrick says, a friend whose RN told me she doesn't involve with community michangos because she has IUL. But I said IUL is not guaranteed if things go bad, because these insurance companies can file bankruptcies. She replied with anger that I'm a very negative person. Now this is, I think, and like I've been in the, because I've physically gone those trainings.
Let's do it.
I've physically gone in those trainings. This is how people who sell them
of those
are trained. They are told, like you tell someone that they're being negative because they're taught how to overcome a barrier. So that's one very common thing. You'll be told that you're being negative. The one thing they'll tell you, typically, they will not tell you exactly what they're selling. They'll tell you they're giving you financial education,
right?
And that's how it's sometimes it's sold as financial education. But basically, it's kind of like me telling you that come to my class, I'm teaching health education, while all I'm selling is Panadol. And whatever disease you have, Panadol. Whether ni kichwa inakuuma, whether ni mkono, whether umekatwa mkono, Panadol ndo dawa yako, which is essentially what's happening here. And then Upper Steven says, the moment a guy came in an IUL conference call and said, I love traveling and good life, I checked out. And then Atieno says Quails were just chilling. Amina Holmes, karibu sana, all the way from Ohio.
Wow. Happy New Year, Amina Holmes. Happy New Year.
Happy birthday, Jackie Sizzle.
Yeah, and then...
and happy birthday, Naomi.
Yeah, and then... Eunice says, I did Holland Universal. Gerald says, glad I tuned in, though IUL was I thought IUL was a secure investment. This is profound. And there's so many, if you don't believe me, just go, there's so many people who talk about this issue, like on YouTube, and I can share some of the videos, like people who are very respected in the finance industry who talk about this. And then Adhiambo Dak says, Mr. Muroki, what big words can a Luopian use to decline an IUL without letting Luos down? Okay.
No.
Okay, no. So
wow.
And then
I thought you were gonna say opine.
And then Patrick says best option is to take 30 years term life. If you have a 1-year-old child and it expires after paying premium for 30 years, your child will be 31 years. The goal is to protect your children. if you die when your children are young, not to leave money when you die. But here's a challenge that I sometimes have for people. By the time, let's say like a child is maybe 30 years old, I'm assuming by that time they've started working. By the time someone is 30 years old, they're no longer
underneath you.
Yeah, they're no longer underneath the parents. So, and I understand, like especially if you die and your child is still a minor, I can understand the concern.
And
that people have.
Actually, I can agree with what Patrick did, because my dad did the same thing.
Yes.
Right. When we were born, when we came to America. So I was born in Kenya. Doesn't matter how much my twin.
You were born where?
That too. Say something. No, I mean, so we had a he got term life for us, right? Yeah. 20 years. There were 20 years, because I was 10 years old right?
Okay. So until 30.
And till 30, but he knew he protected his kids
for that
period of time. And at that point in time, he was like, and after that period ended, we got all kicked out of his insurances, and he left it us.
And would you sort? Basically,
right. Yeah,
on your own, I've done everything I can do for you.
I've done everything correct.
So, have you ever had a conversation with him, asking him if he thought that 20 years the 20 years he invested of premiums was a no? Well, I'm assuming that he didn't pay the full 20 years. I think you paid like...
It's like $60 a month, or something like $30 a month. Something it was minimal. And in between that, so it's my brother and I who were here. Mm-hmm. We had a middle brother who got called up. But not that he cashed in, but there was something. He saw a risk. And my middle brother got called up when we were in Kenya.
Okay.
So when we came here, he was like, I got to figure this.
Got to protect
my boys, right?
And I understand.
And everybody who knows us is like, Duke and I are rock stars, and we break every rule that was ever created. Mm-hmm. But he tried to protect us, and everybody should just look at that, right? Don't look at $60 a month for 30 years. Here we are. The good thing is he never had to cash out.
Yeah, because he was understood.
Right. The good thing is that he never had to cash out, because if he had to cash out, it means that
things are thick.
Things are thick.
Yeah. Now another thing that another piece of advice that I can tell people: if you have a child, you can start putting money automatically into a brokerage. You can open a brokerage account into your child's name, which they'll be eligible to pull out, I think, at age 18 or 21. And if you do as little as that, $60 or $100 a month, it will be quite a chunk of change by the time, they're turning 21. So like Jake or Heather, they will have a down payment for a home. Unlike most people who are that age, where there will be a chunk, and to me that's a direction I would encourage people to take. Of course, everybody has a different situation. There are people with situations where maybe the child has a condition, or maybe there's this or that, but that's one area that I would encourage people to take that direction. Do a very small amount. It doesn't have to be $1,000 a month. You can start, like at $50 a month, and slowly graduate it to $100 a month. By the time that child is turning 21, they have a net worth of maybe $200,000. Yeah.
Let me ask, in all that we're discussing with Trump and his shenanigans that are going on, how is that affecting whatever we're discussing, or is it affecting?
No, I'm not quite understanding. Affecting what?
So the tariffs, the layoffs, insecurity with jobs, asking Jerome Powell to lower the, what do you call it? The interest rate.
Yeah.
There's so much going on that people are not aware. Like even the few shenanigans that this guy handled the last maybe 3 weeks with the tariffs and wars and people's portfolios sinking, going out. I mean, like you could sometimes find out like on Facebook or whatever, that's, you guys are talking about IULs coming in. People are like, oh, this is a time to buy, but guys have lost enough. And again, this is a conversation that probably some of us really need to delve into, for some of us who do not really completely understand how IULs
No,
work.
I think I'm gonna let Maura answer that. But before that, I think, like at a very basic level, people need to understand that the American economy is what you call a consumer economy.
Yes.
There's something called GDP, the gross domestic product. Gross domestic product essentially is all the economic activity that's happening. Like there's a formula that's used in economics that's called CIG: consumption, investment, and government expenditure. That's what makes up the American economy. And the C part, the consumption, is the biggest part, which is close to 70%. So, and that's the reason why sometimes in America, when something happens, they quickly give a stimulus, because when Americans stop spending, it means the economy starts contracting, and so many other things start falling apart. So the less amount of money you spend. Let's say, for example, like you decide to cut on groceries. So now instead of spending $800 a month for your family, you're now spending $500. That means there are less groceries that are making it to the shelves. So that means they have to cut someone who's working in bringing those groceries out. When you're cutting someone there, it means there's a farmer who can't supply all the food that they were supplying. So there's kind of a domino effect that happens across the economy, which is kind of what's happening now. And then that R word comes up, which people hear a lot, which is recession, which means the economy is shrinking. It's contracting. So when it's contracting, it means people are losing jobs.
It's receding.
Yes, people are losing jobs, and the paychecks are smaller. So essentially, people are suffering.